us about solar power uptake. So now we want to just give more perspective on this, and my colleague Brenda Kerubo has Paul Simiyu on the other side of the studio. Brenda, what does Paul have to say about the uptake of solar power?
I mean, it's quite an interesting development because clearly solar is working, solar energy is possible, and it can actually go fully into a business and become dependent and use KPLC as a backup. I didn't even know that was possible. But I am not the expert, but Paul Simiyu is the expert. He is the Chief Executive Officer of Sentimental Energy Cooperative Limited. Welcome to the program.
Thank you, Brenda.
All right, so it's such a pleasure having you. Solar energy, we do not have a lot of businesses that depend on this form of energy. Most of them are in the Kenya power sector. But how possible is it, solar energy uptake in the country? Is it now coming into fruition?
I think for the last 3 years, we have witnessed a big shift in absorption of solar energy in the country, right from the major industrial and commercial consumers to residential and domestic users, just because of the cost of electricity and the reliability part of it. So for your information, Kenya is the leading uptake of solar energy in Africa. Just at the same par with an alternative energy like geothermal. And for the last, for example, 9 years, we have witnessed about 3.5 million Kenyans, and as a country as a whole, using solar energy, either as a form of electricity use or as a form of heating their water from their residential to commercial centers. So couple up with a bit of incentives from the government, like zero or tax exemptions from importers of solar equipment, and then the rise of electricity from the grid costs, the interest in the solar energy has actually increased, let's say by about 30–40% for the last 3 years.
So if you are a business and they're watching you, where exactly do you start? Because now you're considering solar as an alternative. What do you start with, and how much does it cost the whole chain up until you have it fully installed in your business?
Well, solar equipment or the solar process is actually very, very basic. There are only about 3 or 4 equipments that are considered in terms of assembly for someone to have an electricity generated from the solar. Majorly the solar modules, which are the ones that produce what we call direct current from the sun. Of course, we are talking about electricity aspect for solar because from the beginning, we get about 2 forms of energy from the sun. We have the light energy, which we harness in form of the technology for photovoltaics to give us electricity, and we have the heat energy, which we harness under the thermal conditions to give us hot water as it is. So if you're talking about the two, the entire component of the equipment is actually very robust but very simple, broken down into 4 equipment. That is the solar modules for DC power production, the batteries for energy storage in case you want to go the storage way. There's an inverter or a power conditioner that converts that power from the direct current from the sun to normal electricity that we need to power our equipment, like laptops, machines, equipment, printers, charging our phones, even running a factory, for example, and also another smaller component called a charge controller, which if you're considering small domestic systems, then that's part and parcel of the component. If you're considering high commercial sense, then that's basically an option aspect that we don't use. So the process actually involves understanding your electricity requirements. As a business, you have to use electricity as a factor of production. Once you understand your cost of electricity, we go back to analyze how much can be off-taken from the normal grid supply to the solar by doing an energy audit or an energy analysis that involves analyzing your electricity costs, analyzing your equipment that you have in your business center, carrying out what we call a data logging profile that allows us to understand every minute how much electricity you are using and of what capacity and what are the variations. From that point, we come up with another tool that helps us to understand the quality of energy from the sun in your location. This enables us to calculate the net amount of electricity you can get from the sun rays in that particular region through a tool called PVSYST or any other metronome data. And that data is actually extracted from a software that has, let's say, an annotation of analysis for the last 10 years, for example, and gives us an average that gives us the average that allows us to come with a net quantity of electricity that is foolproof. that when you design a solution from the solar system for your business, then it's 100% dependent and it's 100% reliable to make your requirements. Once all that design process is done, now we go into selection of the equipment, which I've just mentioned. Then we put them together, we come and install in your premises.
All right, Paul, that's a lot of engineering. Feels like I'm in a physics class. Just briefly walk us through the minimum amount that a business can spend. Let's say a business that is producing, manufacturing goods in industrial area. How much can they spend on a minimum amount? And of course now, give us also a highlight vis-a-vis how much they will spend once the unit is fully in place in terms of electricity cost compared to Kenya Power usage.
I'm privileged to have worked on over 128 industrial power projects in this Nairobi and across the country. I'll give one of our latest projects, which I've just installed, a 50 kilowatt solar system at Roy Holiers, just across industry area. As a case study, the logistic company used to spend 220,000 per month on electricity. That's power that they're consuming from morning to morning. The production sector allows them to be having a lot of power consumption during daytime and a bit of it at night. What we did is that when we put in a 50 kilowatt solar system, they reduced their costs by 65%. So currently, as it is, from 220,000 on a monthly basis, they are currently paying back to Kenya Power at around 52,000 Kenya shillings. So that is representing about up to 65% power savings. Now what happens is that, as we mentioned, we have two forms of electricity from the sun, from the solar. We have what we call captive solar systems and off-grid solar systems. The captive systems allows us to just design a solar system in a business premise that allows them to just consume what they require on a daily basis. So that process that I just explained a few minutes ago allows us to give us the tenacity to allow us to give that particular captive solar system. Now, after installing the solar system, we have what we call a levelized cost of energy, and that's where the affordability cost comes in, because grid capacity currently for light commercial to heavy industrial ranges from a cost of 16 shillings a unit to up to 25 shillings. Right. I'm sure the current intervention of the government can bring it down by about 1 or 2 shillings, but the fact remains that cost of electricity remains quite high in Kenya. Now, when we install solar, as I just mentioned, a 65% reduction comes in because when you put in the solar system, a solar system is capped with a warranty production of 25 years, capped up on 82% consumption. So when you do the annotation part, it means your cost of electricity comes down from 25 shillings. You're able to produce your own electricity at a cost of between 3 shillings to 5 shillings. And that's where the entire savings comes in.
All right. Thank you so much for your insight, Paul Simiyu from Sentimental Energy. I know today we really focused on the business aspect, but again, we will invite you even as we speak about now the household perspective, because Branji, actually I use partly solar and KPLC in my house, but the bulk of it is still Kenya Power. I don't know if solar is something that you may also want to consider, considering that, you know, Kenya Power knows what it does best.
Definitely. You know, there was a joke online that mtu anaoga, anaamka, anaoga, anavangu, anaenda kukata stima. But I mean, it's a conversation that's neither here nor there. My only thing would be how to make people adopt the solar power, because there were some very also, for lack of a better word, so many punitive laws that were coming up on people who were supposed to, if you were supposed to now uptake solar energy, there were a lot of rules that were coming up, or I don't know, you have to have 3 years of knowledge in electrical engineering and the like. So such kind of policies need to be looked at, toned down a bit, so that we have at least two alternatives to Kenya Power. At least that we power up the wind power energy, and of course look at geothermal energy, which is also we are also very rich in geothermal energy in this country, and then now look at solar energy. Brenda, what do you think?
I mean, of course, this is an interesting development. We are definitely going to have a part 2 in relation to alternative energy, even in our subsequent Business Cafe program. It was a pleasure having you, and thank you so much for watching Business Cafe. I have been your host, Brenda Kerubo.
And I'm Brian George Otieno. See you on the next one. Enjoy the rest of your viewing. And by then, Nairobians, keep warm, please.